Resuming debate, reprise de débat, the honourable member for Sudbury.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I'm very pleased to have this opportunity to rise to speak to this motion today.
Just making sure that I fully say where I'm from and what I've do and what I've done in the past. I am a small business owner, and I'm also a tax lawyer. I used to teach tax at the Faculty of Law at the University of Ottawa, and I used to teach corporate tax at the Faculty of Management at the Laurentian University. And as well, my wife is a physician. She's an incorporated physician. So on July 18th, le 18 juillet, c'est clair.
On July 18th, like many other people in this House and in the general population, we were very interested in seeing what the party was going to be disclosing with respect to the proposed tax changes. Now, clearly, in my family, I'm very fortunate to have been at law school, to be a tax expert. The same for my wife. My father was a welder. Her father was an electrician. We came from very simple backgrounds, and we were lucky because at the time, we could afford to go to university, and that dream is shrinking. And that's why we need to protect the tax system and ensure that it's fair. And we need to look at the situation as it stands, a fairer system to make that dream available to everyone. Now, there's a gap that's increasing, and I agree fully with dealing with it.
What the reform is going to be, I sat down and I read the whole document. I actually looked at the draft legislation, looked at that as well. Had multiple discussions with colleagues of mine, tax lawyers, tax accountants across the country, business owners. I met with the Chamber of Commerce. I've had town halls, replied to many phone calls. So different walks of life, small business owners to very successful physicians, to very successful dentists, to tax lawyers on Bay Street, to tax lawyers in rural areas of Canada. So at the end of the day, when we take a step back and we look at what we have in Canada, right now we have the lowest small business tax rate of the G7 countries, 15%. The government could have decided, we'll just try to raise that. You know what? At the end of the day, everything would have been fixed, but we don't want to do that. We want to continue that the small businesses have the lowest tax rate. Why? We want them to continue to invest. It's important that they continue to invest in equipment, growing their company, hiring more people. That is the purpose, in my opinion, to having such a low tax rate. Now, a lot of people have obviously made their plans, structured their companies legitimately, and the Minister of Finance has said this multiple times. Everybody has the ability to follow the rules and do this legitimately. However, I certainly believe that there is reform to be made in the Income Tax Act right now. Right now, people can, what we call surplus stripping. Basically, if you have a profit, or there's a high amount of cash in your corporation, you can do a fictitious transaction with a family member or just with yourself by incorporating another company. After you sign a few documents, guess what? You can convert what would be a dividend to a capital gain and reduce the tax rate by 20%. The Income Tax Act has been, over the last 60 years, the finance has been trying to address this problem. Actually, in the 80s, when the Conservatives were in power, basically they brought in the GAR, the General Anti-Avoidance Provision, and to address surplus stripping. However, after 30 years, clearly the courts have not followed. So there needs to be a fix. Every tax lawyer and every tax accountant that I've talked to say this needs to be done. By doing this, and when the minister talks about unintended tax consequences, there are other issues that have arisen in the draft legislation and in the discussion paper. And that's why the minister gets up as well and says, there are issues, we have heard from people, we are listening, and we need to address these. So the other thing that I find unfair, that I'm surprised that the Conservatives are not even talking about this, is the fact that if you set up your affairs properly, right now, with the current rules that we have, and you sell your business, you can actually have a child, 2 months old, get a capital gains exemption of $830,000. A child that can't even contract, basically because they're a beneficiary of a trust. They can have a capital gains exemption of $830,000. You guys are saying that that's fair? I don't think so. I really don't. Sorry.
To address the questions to the chair.
I don't. The Conservatives believe that is fair. I don't believe that is also fair. So for me, there are issues that we need to deal with that need to be addressed. As well, Madam Speaker, one of the things that has come up in the draft legislation, and the main question is, are these rules retroactive? The phone calls that I've received is saying, what I've done in the past, we're up to July 18th, am I going to be affected by these new rules? Is that going to be effective? Now, again, the minister has gone and said these rules will not be retroactive. However, if you read the draft legislation, there does appear to be some retroactivity. That's why we need to listen. I've had many essays, a lot of documentation sent my way by different groups. Actually, yesterday was the Canadian Bar Association with the CPA Association of Canada, helping us, wanted to address these inequities in the system. And certainly the retroactive is a major issue that needs to be addressed. The party opposite wants us to vote tonight, to want us to extend the consultation, which I find a bit ironic. Because earlier today, somebody said, well, you know what, there is uncertainty right now. Business owners don't know what the rules are, yet they want to continue this until January 31st. But right now, what I'm hearing on the ground, business owners are saying, we need certainty. We need to know what the rules are before we can make a decision. Actually, a month ago, I talked to an old friend of mine. He says, right now, you know what, I need to draft my will. I'm not sure what to do because I'm not sure what the rules, how it's going to end up. The longer we continue this, the less certainty there are in the markets. There need to be assurances. Because when we're in a consultation, Madam Speaker, the Minister of Finance can make pronouncements. He cannot basically make comments or really address and give direction to the Canadian population, to business owners, and to this House. Now that this consultation period is done, he can do that. But before he can do that, he is taking into consideration all of the comments, and many good comments, many good suggestions have come our way as well. Now, Madam Speaker, to me, the debate will continue. Even though the consultation period stopped yesterday, the debate will continue. I will meet again with my constituents. I am returning phone calls. I want their suggestions. I am addressing these with the Department of Finance, with my colleagues, with my Liberal colleagues, with people in this House to try to make it right, just as the Minister of Finance said. We are going to get this right. We want to make the system more fair in order to address these inequities that exist right now in the Income Tax Act. So, and again, right now when we talk about passive income, and I know a lot of the comments from the members of the opposition is talking about the whole issue of 73% tax. Right now, that is hypothetical, but we have a discussion paper. There is a discussion paper that has provided certain scenarios that is hypothetical. We do not have a draft legislation to deal with. So the sooner that we have a draft legislation that we can look at, that we can study, that we can question, and that we can offer other ways to changes to improve it, the better small businesses are off. So when I'm getting phone calls and saying I'm concerned, actually, Madam Speaker, I had a call, well, a few calls on this issue saying, you know what, we have saved money to reinvest. Right now, I'm being told that we'll have to pay the normal amount of tax on that money. I'm saying, you know what, that is not the way that I'm reading the draft legislation, and that's not the way that I'm reading the discussion paper. I said, however, before you do anything, wait and see what the results are going to be, and you have a certainty. That is normal. When we have bills in front of this House, will always be uncertainty in the law until we actually draft and bring this bill to the House to discuss and vote on. So I'm actually very happy that the consultation period is over. The discussion will continue. It has to continue. And that's where I think we need to put our efforts, is on a go-forward basis, how to make sure that we address a lot of what is in the draft legislation, what is in the discussion paper, and how this will be rolled out on the ground to see what the effects will be. Madam Speaker, je suis très fier qu'on adresse cette question.
I'm very proud that we are dealing with this issue. I'm very proud that we're talking about tax fairness in our system. I understand. I've heard from many entrepreneurs and doctors who are very worried for their situations. It is clear that at the same time, these entrepreneurs, we want to make sure that they have success. We want them to create a life that is up to their level. We are going to continue to invest. We will continue to give them opportunities to invest. That will not stop, Madam Speaker. And I'm very happy that we are continuing along these lines. Thank you. Questions and comments? The Honourable Member.
Madam Chair, again, the member across the way claimed that the goal